Ma'am, just a second.
I have made it live. The meeting is live on YouTube. So,
Okay.
Chandni, you may start now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I, Chandni Singh, on behalf of Her World India, would like to welcome you. I'm sorry, should I start again?
Please.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I, Chandni Singh, on behalf of Her World India, would like to welcome you all to the talk show series where we would be discussing the current situation prevalent across the country due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the different ways in which the virus is impacting our everyday lives. Not only our lives, but the pandemic has had catastrophic effects on the economy, education, and healthcare. We feel privileged to be hosting this show in collaboration with Policy Center and Gender Lab Miranda House, Delhi University. Policy Center and Gender Lab provides research opportunities in the sphere of gender studies, policy shape up, and social sciences. So today we have with us Mrs. Sonal Goyal, an IS officer and Special Resident Commissioner at Tripura Bhavan, New Delhi. Mrs. Goyal has featured in Niti Aayog, United Nations, and MyGov.in as top 25 women transforming India. She's a recipient of many awards and honors. In her previous assignments, she has managed to showcase expertise and acumen of the finest kind. A 2008 batch IAS officer, Mrs. Sonal Goyal is a role model to young women and youth at large. She has been an inspiration to those aspiring for success in life. We are privileged to have you, ma'am. We also have with us the founder and editor-in-chief of Her World India, Ms. Rakhi Bakshi. She's a veteran media professional who has served as media advisor to Lok Sabha Speaker and was also a senior editor on Rajya Sabha TV. She has also worked with Doordarshan and Zee News. She works very passionately on gender issues. Her World India is a brainchild of Ms. Bakshi. Her World India strives for an all-inclusive and gender-equal world. It's a space that lends voice to women and carries their stories forward. During the session, I request all the attendees to kindly keep themselves on mute and turn off their videos. If anyone has any questions, they're requested to put it in the chat box. All the questions will be taken up at the end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so very much once again, Chandni, for that very, very gracious introduction. We are very truly privileged and delighted once again today in our Her World Talk Show series to have a very, very inspiring woman and esteemed speaker and a guest on this show today. As you know that every day we are featuring and bringing you these shows on COVID-19 and related topics, and we're talking to all kinds of experts and voices that are being brought to you on this platform. So we today also are truly honored to have Mrs. Sonal Goyal, who's been introduced to you already, but somebody I must tell you also is a pleasure to talk to, somebody who is equipped with so much of qualification. When I was reading, right from law to company secretaryship to studies at SRCC, and right now also in her previous assignments, these are too many, so we can't bring to you right now all at once, but I'm sure that we'll also let you know that when we talk to her, especially in Tripura, but otherwise also. And on her all posts, as we see also, she's been inspiring a lot of people through her thoughts, her own disciplined behavior that we've seen, and also the kind of work that she exhibits all through. So welcome, Mrs. Sonal Goyal, to the show on Her World India.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Chandni, for such a elaborate description about me. Thank you so much.
So, of course, we'll begin by a question which looks very quintessentially stereotypical, but yes, very important to ask that where you have reached as a woman has its own share of responsibility, because it's also very iconic where you have reached. So you represent, a position which so many people are looking up to. Tell us more about that. How does it feel?
Thank you so much for saying that. As has been mentioned to the viewers that I am an IS officer, and it has been almost now 13 years I am into public service. Prior to that, as you also mentioned, that since I am a CS LLB, so I was working in private sector. Of course, that was on a part-time basis. So how it feels, I would come to this part later on. I'll just mention briefly in around 2 minutes about my journey, how I entered into civil services. So I belong to a district called Panipat in Haryana. I'm sure most of you must have heard that district and of course the state. And my family is a business class family based there. So, but my father has always been encouraging about the education, despite all the kind of societal orthodoxies which we had seen throughout our childhood. So when I was doing my graduation from Shriram College, in my third year, I came across civil services, and I somehow felt and had an intuition that this is a platform which would enable me to contribute towards the nation building and to contribute to the welfare of the people and the society. So when I discussed this with my parents, there were initially so many apprehension because I was doing CS also along with graduation. At that time, it was allowed. So I was in my second stage of CS and of course, third year of graduation. So my father had all those kinds of apprehension. Firstly, civil service examination is very difficult. You are not sure even after your 100% efforts that you will clear through, even after clearing, whether you will get all India service or you will get Group B service, it is not sure. Then when you get an service like IAS, IPS, foreign service, revenue service, then also you will have dilemmas of getting cadre, especially in the IAS, IPS. And then after that, you have also to think about the marriage life, how would be your spouse would be in which profession, how will you settle your family life. So all those apprehensions were there. And yes, I'm talking about way back in 2003-4. So it is almost 2 decades from today, what we are seeing in the society. But then when I kept on discussing with them for around 6 months, so my father said, okay, you give your attempt. If you have in your mind, if you are so much passionate about it, you give your attempt, but you should always be having a plan B in life. Plan B, what he mentioned is that even if you don't clear civil services, you should have a fallback career option, because as we all know that selection is not sure shot. And the other thing which he always mentioned, that for a female, for a girl, for a woman, it is very important to be financially independent. My father always used to say, even though it was a completely entirely business family in which most of the females have been in the role of homemakers, including my own mother, but my father said that the upcoming generation should see more equality in terms of education, health, and all those kind of facilities which are extended to boys should also be given to the girls in the family. So taking that advice from my father, I completed my graduation. I completed my CS in 2004. And after that, I took admission into LLB from Delhi University. After giving entrance, I qualified. And I also started preparation for civil services in the same year, 2004. And I also started my job as CS on a part-time basis. 2004 to 2007, these three things were parallel in my life. I was pursuing my law. It was a regular course. I had to attend the classes. My job was there and the focus was purely on civil services preparation. I gave my first attempt in 2006, in which unfortunately I did not get an interview call. I wrote mains examination, the second stage. And then in next year, 2007, of course, I was very much disappointed, demotivated, because I had expected that I should be getting selected. Then I had no other option. And then I thought that I should give more than my 100% so that I should not have any grudge on my own self that I did not give my efforts. So in the second attempt, because I could understand my weak points. So I tried to improvise on them. And by God's grace, by support of my parents, I could qualify, and I got All India rank 13th in 2007 examination. Since the final results are declared in the 2000 in the next year, so my batch is 2008. So from a girl who had never thought of during the school days, even during graduation, that she would be coming into public service, civil services, which is altogether a different dynamics, and none of none of the family members had ever thought of appearing in civil services. So I could dream about that, and I could join the civil services. And my husband now is also an IRS officer. Earlier, he was in the private sector. So this kind of opportunity which I got, I think I was fortunate. But of course, nobody can replace your own efforts, your own dedication, and the commitment which you give to your own self to achieve what you want to do in your life. So when you're talking about Rakhi ji, when you mentioned about that, I'm a woman achiever and how does it feel being at such a senior position? So I definitely feel that there are still so many young girls, so many young women who want to be something in life, who want to achieve many things in life. Sometimes they don't have knowledge or the right kind of orientation that how do they achieve that, and sometimes they don't have resources, the circumstances of life, or resources in the form of financial resources, the support from family, or the family obligations are not allowing them. So I feel that it is good whatever I have achieved, so it is even more responsibility on my part to empower other such girls and women who want to do so much in life. So I feel in such a position, so that I should be helping more and more women, more and more girls to come forth. And I have also tried to do this from my first posting when I was STM till even till today. Wherever I have got the opportunity, I have tried to do something for women, for girls, for young girls, to encourage. And this issue of gender parity has been always close to my heart.
Very nice to hear that whole story also. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching will definitely get very inspired by this kind of a journey. But since you have mentioned and so passionately about how you looked at, your aim, achieving those goals, which you did finally, would you also like to share some experiences which you really remember, which became kind of landmark, in this journey altogether?
Yeah, the initial landmark was, of course, the day of my selection, the day when the UPSC Civil Services result was announced. That day and those moments are still fresh in my mind. It was 16th of May 2008 afternoon, I think 3:30 or 4 o'clock, when I got to know the result and I cleared. And fortunately, my both parents were there in my home. So we had that joy, we had that emotional moments being shared by all of us together.
I'm sure, especially, when you're describing, Ms. Goyal, the kind of milieu you came from, you talked about the background, a business family background, and that then you joined.
And even our relatives when we were studying. So I want to mention that I have an elder daughter and a younger brother. Okay. So both of them are chartered accountants. So even when my sister was doing her chartered accountancy and I was doing preparation for civil services, so our relatives indirectly used to say to my father especially that हरियाणवी लैंग्वेज में कि आप अपनी बेटियों को इतना क्यों पढ़ा रहे हो, इनकी ग्रेजुएशन हो गई, इनकी शादी कर दीजिए, वो अपना घर संभाले। तो मेरे फादर हमेशा ये कहा करते थे कि एजुकेशन एक ऐसा गिफ्ट है जो हमें बच्चों को देना चाहिए, चाहे वो लड़का हो चाहे लड़की हो।
वेरी नाइस।
एक बार वो अपने पैरों पे खड़े हो जाएं तो उसके बाद वो डिसाइड करेंगे कि उन्हें लाइफ में आगे क्या करना है। तो दिस इज द वे। सो जो लोग उस टाइम में क्रिटिसाइज करते थे मुझे या मेरी फैमिली को, मुझे बोला जाता था कि शी इज वेरी सेल्फिश, शी इज नॉट अटेंडिंग सोशल ओकेजन्स, क्योंकि टाइम नहीं रहता था। अगर आपके पास 2 या 3 साल हैं, you have to count your number of hours. I am telling it practically. You can't afford to go to any function. And एक दिन important है जब आप सिविल्स की तैयारी कर रहे हैं तो। So I did not have time. So I was criticized also. People used to say कि पता नहीं वो क्या करेगी क्या नहीं करेगी. But then I thought कि ठीक है, जो होगा देखेंगे. I have to be true to my own self. And now those same people are there who will come and meet me, who will be appreciating, of course, who congratulated. So this is how, things move. So this was one important day which I always
treasure, actually.
Yeah. And when we talk about landmarks, actually during our entire period of service, we come across many such instances in which you feel that you have actually acted in a humane way. So in our academy, we were taught that every file has a human face. So every file which comes to an officer, you will be taking some decision, and that decision would be impacting life of at least one person, or if not one, then even more. In most of the files, except when it is an administrative matter like purchase of some material or whatever. So this thinking and this notion I have always carried in my mind, and I have always thought in such way. And whatever decisions I take, I try to be honest to my own self, and I think in that manner that if I would be in the position of this person who is in front of me, the other party, then what should I have been expected? So
that's a very great thought, actually. I'm so
whatever
impressed.
is the expectation as per justice and as per the right norms of that person who is coming to meet me in the office, or a person who has applied for some benefit, or who has applied for some kind of assistance from government under the rules. So what would be his or her expectation? And then I try to act accordingly if I was in his or her place. And that is the thing which has been driving me. And when we are talking about landmarks, so when I was SDM in a subdivision called Dhalai, which is Dhalai district in Ambasa. Dhalai district in Tripura. Ambasa was a subdivision wherein I was posted. It had mixed population. It had village committees, which were tribal dominated villages. And it had Gram Panchayat areas also, so the non-tribal people. So Bengali and tribal mixed population was there. There were few paras. In local language, they are called paras, village committees, wherein there was 100% tribal dominated population. So I came across around 7 paras in my subdivision, and there was a administrative practice of holding camps in the remote areas. So in the camp, the entire team of the administration, all the major departments, line departments would go, and they will spend a day there and provide basic government services, facilities, health checkup, medicine distribution, all those kinds of things, awareness campaign, all those was being done. When I visited one particular village committee called Malda Para, we had to travel around 12 to 15 kilometers on foot. So I'm way back talking about 2010 when I was SDM. So we had to travel to foot to reach to the actual location where the people were residing. So when I started going there, I realized we found out actually that school was not functioning. There was a primary school, the health center, the Anganwadi center, all of them were not functioning. The reason was that because of the connectivity issue.
Okay.
So what we tried to do as a short-term measure is that there was a BSF cantonment area there. There was a battalion of BSF posted in the nearby area. We took the help of local BSF personnel there, and we made the stay arrangements for the medical officer, for the teacher, for the staff who was working at the Anganwadi center. So around 5 days in a week, they were staying there, and on weekends, they were traveling back to their places. So this kind of experiment actually helped in mobilizing and making the basic government services operational in that village committee. And similar kind of initiative we took in the other village committees also. And of course, later on there was this project for road connectivity also. But as we all know, that road connectivity project would take some time. So that project was also initiated. But meanwhile, we could ensure that the tribals, even if there are 150 people who are staying there in the para, in Malda Para, I think there were 250 plus people who were staying there. So they are also not deprived of, and they are getting the government services. So this one incident I remember because in a remotely located area, we could
you managed actually
services reach out to people.
Okay,
all these kind of things have been all throughout the profession.
Okay, again a question which I'm sure a lot of you lady bureaucrats are asked also, but how does it feel to be achieving where again you are in a so-called still a man's world? I won't say it's an equal world, that's what we believe in or strive for, but how does it feel to be there as a woman IS officer and deal with so many people who are supposed to be from the other gender? What is the kind of feeling, what is the kind of strength also that you come from?
So we all should be appreciating the fact that India has been a predominantly patriarchal mindset society. when we talk about our history, when we see history, there were all kind of practices like sati pratha, dowry, and female feticide was there. And then also there was issue of child marriage. Our society has been progressing gradually. We have got so many legislations, Sati Prohibition Act, Dowry Prohibition Act, and all, PCP and DT Act, which prohibits the sex determination of the fetus in a mother's womb. And various other kinds of economic legislations, various which are giving the rights of the property to a daughter of the family. When we talk about women, me being a women achiever in a male-dominated world, so even I am being asked quite a few times the question that whether you feel any prejudice or bias in the system, or you feel any challenge as a female bureaucrat. So I always mention that there are some inherent biases. I would not disagree to that fact. And the biases are such somehow that, for example, you have to bear a child. You have to perform the duty of a mother. So many a times in your career, your personal and social life do not move in tandem with each other. Many a times you are in a key posting, you are in a district, and then you are expecting, and then you have to go on a maternity or a childcare leave. We have seen so many women officers even working during pandemic. Last year I was working in Gurugram. We have seen so many women officers working at the forefront and even curtailing their leaves. I myself, when my second child was born, that time I was posted in Faridabad. I did not take my 6 months maternity leave. I took only 3 months leave. I am not saying it with pride. The reason why I am mentioning is that as officers, we are much under the responsibility to balance our personal and professional lives. And we women officers have been doing it with much grace, with our strengths, and with our resilience. And appreciate. And also, there are still some postings which you would see that are not being positioned by the women officers. But that is, of course, a kind of a trend which is changing now. We see many women officers being the chief secretaries of states. Till recently, even government of Haryana had a lady chief secretary. We had seen during last year, during COVID-19 pandemic first wave, we had seen Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Mrs. Preeti Sudhan, Madam. She was leading the nation's fight against COVID-19 pandemic.
True, very true, very true.
So many lady IAS, IPS, IRS officers are contributing without even bothering about their personal
discomfort. So, do you think this number should rise, Mrs. Goel, that this number of women bureaucrats, the kind of ratio male-female in bureaucracy should rise? More women in bureaucracy are needed?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. If we talk about the present percentage, so in the police service, if I talk about the IPS, the percentage is less than 10%. In the IAS, the percentage is not even 20%. And if we see the all civil services, so it would not be more than, say, around 20-25%. If we see the other services also. And of course, the percentage is much lesser in the armed forces, in the paramilitary forces. So we, of course, need to encourage more women to come forward. For that, what is required? The first and foremost thing is the education. We need to provide them access to higher education, access to equal opportunities. And also we need to give them proper orientation, proper guidance that this is how they can achieve to that. And once they are willing to prepare to compete for any competitive examination or go in for higher studies, families, parents, or even spouses, if they are married, they should be supporting to achieve what they want in life. And if we are having more women in bureaucracy, or for that matter, any kind of profession, whether it is a private sector or women in politics, you will see more and more gender orientation, gender sensitization coming in the entire working of that organization, in the entire working of the system. In politics, if we see that we have honorable president, we had honorable prime minister in our country itself being women. And we have presently also, we have few cabinet ministers in the portfolio of the government of India. When we see more and more women coming forth, ultimately it is a society as a whole which would be benefiting, because they would be able to give that gender sensitization to the entire organization, to the entire system. And ultimately our policies, our programs would be more women centric, pro women, which would
very nice, very nicely put. So you're basically saying that if there are more numbers, then and you are also saying that there is gender sensitization happening in all organizations. It's a sustained process which is happening, and we need to give more momentum to that by these kind of programs, workshops, maybe these kind of sessions that I and you are in right now, Ms. Goyal, and we should continue to do that. So now the next question that, of course, a lot of people would like to ask, and I'm only representing, is that what are our key learnings from this pandemic? So, pandemic has hit us all hard. We are all in it together. But, somebody who has looked at it, I mean, even in your, you have handled such assignments like when the municipal, corporations and many such important capacities that you've held positions on. What would you say that we are right now learning in terms of healthcare, in terms of how we need to coordinate between different organizations, sectors, look at people? What are the key learnings?
So when we talk about COVID-19 pandemic, whether it was first wave or the recent second wave, we have seen that it was a challenge which was put to all together and nobody was spared. What I want to mention here is that there was no exception, despite the class or despite the mass. There was no exception. But it is also encouraging to see that we have all risen to the occasion and humanity has faced this challenge with resilience. Humanity has shown its determination. So just briefly, I would mention that the government strategy was in COVID-19 pandemic. Wave 1 was, of course, we all know that there was an initial surge in the cases, then there was a lockdown announced. During lockdown, there was an issue of migrant laborers being stuck up at various city locations. The administration took responsibility of feeding them, of supporting them, of making their logistics arrangement. Last year, when this was happening, I was posted in Gurugram as additional CO GMDA, and I had the charge of city bus service also. So I could see the close coordination happening between various departments. Health infrastructure, all the health frontline workers were under tremendous pressure. Even today they are. And now we are seeing the COVID-19 second wave. Unfortunately, second wave has seen more number of cases being reported. It has seen more fatalities. So in every family, I think there would be a loss of a family member or a distant family member, which is very unfortunate. So the government strategy of testing, wherein we had started aggressive testing through RT-PCR test, through rapid antigen test, and then tracing and quarantine. If they are having mild symptoms or if they are having asymptomatic, then home isolation was being recommended. And if it was a case having severe or moderate cases, then they are being hospitalized. We have seen a burden or constraint on our health care facilities, on our health infrastructure. But then, of course, slowly and steadily, government has tried to augment, whether it is the oxygen availability in various districts, in various hospitals, whether it is the number of ventilators which are available. So many, even the private organizations, NGOs, civil society organizations have come forth and helped the hospitals, helped the government in all those efforts. So as we are discussing about the learning, so first and foremost important learning is we all appreciate that for us, health is very much important. So those who were maintaining their earlier good health, even if they are infected, they have been able to recover. And if it is a comorbid case, then they have been facing more complications. So staying healthy physically, mentally is very important. Also, I would like to mention that we have all recognized and appreciated the role of the COVID frontline warriors. All the frontline warriors, whether they are working in hospitals, the doctors, medical fraternity, or they are working in police, administration, the sanitation workers, the people who are working for home deliveries, the medical shops, we have all been appreciative of their roles, and we have realized that we are all interdependent on each other.
Very good.
Your money cannot save you, but your humanity and your help and your kind behavior to each other is important. And it is also important, I would like to mention, that we should agree to this fact that India has been such a populated country, and we have been able to tide over the situation because of the reason that we have had the feeling of helping out each other. Even on social media, if somebody was putting a request for a bed, people would try their best to help out, even if they are not known to each other. So this is a kind of pandemic, this is a kind of learning that we all in a interdependent society.
Sure, and as you rightly said, ma'am, that humanity actually stood to the whole rule of standing to resilience, and that is very well said here. What has really kept us motivated? We talked about learnings, we've talked about the kind of problems we had, the medical support, health infrastructure, all those things, and you've also talked about how we've come together as a society. Also, what has really kept us going? What has kept us motivated? What do you think has kept you motivated?
So what has kept me motivated is the thought in my mind that there is no other option but then to do it. When I myself contracted COVID, my husband had COVID and I also had COVID. So in the third or fourth day, my health started deteriorating. So I had high fever, I had all those symptoms. I was in home isolation. So this thought was always there in my mind that I had no other option but to recover. I have to recover for my kids. I have to recover for my family. अगर मुझे कुछ होता है तो उनका क्या होगा? So I think this thought in us as an individual, सबके mind में ये रहता है. And this is one thing which is keeping us alive. And it is also important to stay motivated on your own self. Also, जो अगर हम बात करें that we have seen so many number of fatalities, we have seen so many, whenever we open our phone in the morning, we will have news of somebody admitted in hospital or some news or the some bad thing or the other. But it is also important to understand that the percentage of those cases is very less. So more than 95% of the cases are recovering. So you have to see at the positive aspect of the pandemic also. Of course, we never want that anybody should be falling ill. Nobody should even have a fever in our family in a routine course also. So whenever, even though it has come in our life, but that kind of a thought and that kind of a support from each other, I think has kept us motivated. Even if we are not able to meet people during lockdown, we are talking to our friends and family online. There are, like, you are organizing a webinar. I have attended so many webinars to motivate students. I have taken sessions for civil services aspirants, because we all understand that we are all human beings. We tend to be demotivated. Life is still not normal. And it will also take time to be normal. And we have to accept the new norm. So the new normal is what? SMS we say in the short form. So wear a mask and use sanitizer, wear a mask and observe social distancing. So this is the new norm. You don't step out if it is not mandatory. Of course, we are required to go to the offices. There are some mandatory works which we are required to do for coordination.
That is only adhering to your duty, and we are really appreciative of the fact that you showed immense courage. I mean, though you have had, as you rightly mentioned here, COVID yourself, but you've kept not only yourself motivated, saying that it is about your family, also for the society, your work, that you have to keep on going, make yourself healthy, but you think so much about how others should also feel happy and they should progress. So that leads to another thing which is very, very relevant in front of us, is about students. And since we are also, working here with a lot of young people, students who very sometimes get anxious about their future uncertainty. We just had this class 12 board exams getting cancelled this time, only for the, for the benefit of large number of students. But what is your advice, Madam Goyal, for these students who are aspiring for a brighter career?
We all very well appreciate that at this moment, in fact, from last 1 year, more than a year or so, there have been a lot of confusions, apprehensions, even for the UPSC students. This year, again, prelims has been postponed to October. It was earlier scheduled in June. Almost all the examinations, I am myself doing LLM, and unfortunately, my first year examination has not been conducted till now. It's a distance learning course. So we all are under so much of apprehension, we are under confusions, but it is also the other way around, in the sense that you are not having distractions. You are not having any compulsion to go to a social occasion, to attend any marriage. So all that time is available to you. So for the students who are preparing for any competitive examination, or who are doing any higher study, my advice would be that try and utilize this time, be focused. Whatever is your course which you are taking, have clarity in your mind that what is the time available to you, and prepare a schedule according to the time available. So the number of months can be divided into the number of weeks, and then you can divide the number of weeks into the days and cover up your topics. Take it as a privilege, take it as an advantage of whatever time you are getting to gain. You are not having distractions. I definitely appreciate that we all tend to be demotivated. We are not meeting our friends, we are not socializing. For that, we have no other option but to avail the online mechanisms available, whether it is a WhatsApp call or any kind of online meetings. You organize those meetings with your family, friends, stay connected, stay happy. If you have any hobby, give time to that. Give time to maintaining your physical and mental health. That is very important, because you should be feeling happy, you should be feeling motivated, and the right kind of environment would only help when you are yourself from within. You are feeling refreshed, when you are feeling happy from your own self. So it is important that you prepare your time schedule, you plan your time available, and accept the new norm, accept the new normal, and have gratitude. I would also like to mention that have gratitude to the Almighty, to the people around you, that at least we are safe, we are healthy, we are alive, and we are still having opportunity to do whatever we want to do in life. So
I quite agree with you, because you've actually shared my word, Madam Goyal. I'm so happy. Gratitude, as you're saying, and I want to repeat your words, is something which is very, very important. We should feel happy that we are alive every day. We're getting food, we are sleeping, and we are under a shelter. So thank you so much for saying
and
this word.
And simultaneously, you also should be kind, and you should be helpful to the people who need your help. That is also very important. To the people around you, there might be some people who might have lost their jobs, who might have not got those opportunities in business, and who are idle, migrant laborers, even, there have been cut downs at many fronts.
So what we also say here is that have a lot of empathy, not only sympathy, but a lot of empathy for people, that understanding that what somebody is going through. Please understand that, give somebody a shoulder, offer some, support in terms of whether material, whether moral support, or whether just picking up your call and saying, hey, how are you? So thank you so much for that. Next question, of course, is that, how do we actually feel that a gender equal world would really, really be there? We are striving for years. Also, I'll mix it with the economic empowerment of women. Do you think that is something which is very crucial for tomorrow's future?
When we are talking about a gender equal world, so I think equality is a basic human right, and this equality is for both the genders. When we are talking about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, even the SDG number 5 is talking about women empowerment, bringing gender parity, bringing gender equality. And they mentioned that women is entitled to equal dignity and freedom. So equal dignity, freedom. And this idea of having a gender equal world has been there, being advocated since many years. We have seen all across the world many women leaders. Recently, we have the US Vice President, Ms. Kamala Harris, taking the oath. And we had seen so many women leaders at the forefront, Miss Angela Merkel in Germany, and we had seen Michelle Obama. We had seen president of various European countries being women. So, and of course, in our own country, as I mentioned earlier also, President Srimati Pratibha Patil ji was a woman. I had the opportunity of meeting her during my training. We had an official call on as a batch, and Women Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi ji. So when we are talking about a gender equal world, we need to encourage women not only in politics, we also need to encourage them in science, we need to encourage them in space, education, in administration, in forces, in armed forces. So what is required? So first and foremost is, as I mentioned earlier also, that education is very important. We need to create institutional structures. We need to create institutional structures which are enabling a girl to realize her dream. So for example, when I'm talking about education, the education of a girl who is there in a school, we have seen, especially in rural areas, that few 2 to 3% of the female, of the girl students are dropping out of the school because of the issue of menstrual hygiene, even today in India, in the rural parts. So menstrual hygiene will mean what? That either they don't have good toilet facilities, good sanitation facilities in the school, or they don't have proper money. Their parents don't have money to get them good quality sanitary napkins. So they don't feel comfortable in attending school or classes, especially during those periods. And sometimes in class 11, 12th, even girls are not even attending the school. So they are ultimately dropping out because of the attendance. We in Jhajjar district, I would like to mention, when I was there, we took an initiative which attempted to address this issue of menstrual hygiene for the girl students who were there in the government schools. And we could do it in a convergence way through promoting women's self-help group who were there in under NRLM. They were producing sanitary napkins. So we used to procure sanitary napkins from them and supply it to the girl students. So it was in a way encouraging the economic empowerment of the self-help group also, and it also helped the female students to attend their classes, not drop out of the school. So small steps which are enabling these things in the system, which are promoting education, which are promoting training, which are promoting financial empowerment, they are very much required. And as you mentioned about financial empowerment, I would like to mention that it is not only in the government sector, it is all across the other parts. It is also across the private sector, wherein private sector needs to have such recruitment rules which promote the recruitment of women at higher levels also, women at managers, women at director level, women who are there in the key managerial post in a company. Private sector is doing, but they also need to do it more. Encourage more women led up startups under various missions of course, Government of India. And in government also, we have so many programs, we have so many schemes which are enabling the vocational training of women, which are enabling the women to become Atmanirbhar. Honorable Prime Minister, sir, last year launched the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, in which in which an economic package was relieved, and also a relief package was announced. And also there has been an emphasis on promoting vocal for local. So the local artisans, local self-help groups, all such groups who are making indigenous products, they are being encouraged. Even on social media, they are being encouraged. And we have so many government schemes, Mahila E-Heart, we have Swader Grihe, we have STEP, which is for empowerment of women. We have many number of schemes which are aiming at economic empowerment. So not speaking much on this, I would just like to mention that unless and until a female is economically or financially independent, she cannot become empowered. So it is very important to emphasize this again and again. Female should be becoming empowered, economically independent. And a study also shows that if a female is earning, if a lady of a family is earning, she would try to save more. She would try to save more and invest it further in some other avenues. And ultimately, it will contribute to our GDP growth rate.
Okay.
So this is one thing which we all need to
understand and work on also.
Yeah.
So the next, and I think as we are trying to also wrap up soon, the question would be of course related to COVID-19 only and the pandemic, is that we are talking about vaccination for all. We're also saying whether we are prepared now for the third wave. So where do we stand, madam, in the sense that for vaccination in all regions, not only in Northeast or Northern India or Central India, everywhere we are saying that we should all get vaccinated. And there are efforts on also, but what would you say right now that A, vaccination, and B, preparation for the third wave?
So vaccination, we all know that India, it started a phase-wise strategy. Earlier, it was for the senior citizens, the vulnerable groups, which was 60 year plus. Then it was for 45 age plus, and then it was 18 year plus. We have seen that if I see the data till last day, till I think 31st of May, we had approximately 22 crore of the vaccine doses which had been administered all across the country. And these vaccine doses indicate that at least first doses have been given to a large number of population. And in some cases, of course, the second dose also has been given after maintaining that minimum gap. We saw initially that India was also under the vaccine matrix. India had also sent the vaccines to the neighboring countries, to the other countries, and the role was being appreciated to a large extent. And today we are also fortunate, we are getting the assistance from other countries. For example, Russia is supplying us Sputnik. So this kind of a vaccine matrix is helping our country a lot. And the strategy which our government is following, we all know that there is little bit of shortage at present, but the production levels have been raised up. The COVID-19 vaccine, the Covishield and Covaxin, both the producers, the manufacturers who are there in our country, they have tried a lot to scale up their manufacturing to ensure the supply of maximum vaccination which is possible. And I think we would be soon, in a time-bound manner, we would be able to vaccinate the entire population. When we are talking about the COVID wave 3, so COVID wave 3, we have seen that COVID wave 2 was deadlier than the COVID wave 1. It had impacted a large number of population. The fatalities have been unfortunately more. But what I feel is that now we have understood the discipline. I think even if there would be an unlock, the phase-wise unlock is being announced by the government, various state governments, and of course central government. But citizens on their own are maintaining that discipline. So we have not started socializing. We are maintaining those COVID-19 appropriate behaviors. And already the healthcare infrastructure facilities have been geared up. In the month of April, we could see that there was a lot of pressure. So we could see that so many dedicated COVID-19 hospitals came up through Army, through DRDO. Many RWAs set up in their community halls the quarantine centers, because not everybody would have a home isolation facility in their homes. So there were community centers who were being converted by the RWAs as COVID care centers, as quarantine centers. We have seen so many people donating oxygen concentrators to hospitals, oxygen concentrators to these societies. We have seen so many oxygen plants which have been augmented all throughout the country, all throughout the state. So I think we all have understood the pandemic is not to be taken lightly. We all are serious about it. And we should be able to face the third wave with much more preparedness, I would say, and much more discipline. And we all really hope that even if it comes, we hope that it does not come and the curve goes down forever. There is no surge further when the curve is flattened.
God forbid, it should never come, as you rightly
July
said.
and August. So we should think that it never comes. Unfortunately, if it is there, I think we are much more prepared, and we should
ever before.
We should be able to cope up with the situation, but of course, we should not be lax.
Okay, so that brings me to my last question, actually. And what about now, as you said, that we have tried to understand as citizens, we have become more aware. We are, many of us, I won't say everyone, but many of us are observing those protocols of COVID, the right kind of behavior, social distancing. I think there is still are some people, or there still are some pockets which really need to understand it much better and maybe behave more properly in terms of wearing the mask even properly, or to maintain social distancing. But what about health insurance? What about children who are orphaned right now? What about looking at vulnerable sections, or providing much better healthcare facilities, as we have now understood, COVID's pattern a little much better than ever before?
So when we are talking about the vulnerable sections of the society, especially the children, especially as you mentioned about the orphan children, unfortunately, this pandemic has hit families to an extent that some kids have lost both their parents. So Government of India recently, they have done good work on this account. I would like to share that Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, they have announced specifically that if there is any such child who is orphan, so we should not be, there has been a helpline number 1098, and it has been advised to people that if they come across any such child who needs a help, whose both parents have died due to COVID, they will be getting assistance. And also, there should not be any illegal adoption. This has been a request from the government to all people across the country. And they have issued a the child helpline is there, 1098, on which if anybody reports the matter, then it is being taken up either by the Child Welfare Committee of the district or the police, or jointly also. So all such instances need to be reported. It needs to be dealt legally, not any illegal adoption. And also recently, Honorable Prime Minister Sir had announced about PM CARES Fund 3-4 days back only, PM CARES Fund, which is talking about PM CARES Fund for the children. So which is talking about that for all such kids who have lost both their parents, unfortunately, for them there would be a fixed deposit of rupees 10 lakh rupees, which they would be getting when they attain the age of 18 years. Also, there is a provision of free school education for such students till they attain the age of 18. They would be getting financial support for higher education, and also government would be paying insurance premium for children who are enrolled under the Ayushman Bharat with the health insurance cover of 5 lakh rupees. So all these provisions are being made by government. My request to viewers is that you please apprise yourself also about these schemes, about these provisions, and you make others also aware, so that if they come across any such case, because children of course will not be in a position to know all these rules, regulations, and to approach the government. So if your family has any relative has such case, please help them. If you're in the colony you have such case, please help out those kids. We have seen Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which is PMGKY, which is providing free ration in the form of rice, wheat, and dal to the family. We are, if we're talking about the healthcare, of course, the healthcare facilities have been upgraded. And we have also started for the home isolation patients. We all admit that we saw the facility of telemedicine consultation. The online doctors medical consultation was being given. So all these Arogya Setu app and all those kind of apps, the digital platforms which have been created by government, they are giving real-time information about the beds availability, about the hospital infrastructure availability, and how one can avail all those informations are available in public domain. So I think we all should be looking to them and try and take benefit.
Okay, so now that we are ending, actually, there may be a couple of questions from some of these young girls. Do you have any question, like Soumya, maybe if you want to ask something?
Some people had, I think, raised their hands. I can see.
Yeah, I saw that, but not many questions that we can take, but one or two questions I think can be taken. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. So I had this question that if you talked about all those schemes that will benefit the vulnerable and the poor, but I mean, there are many schemes out there, but many people are not aware of it. So what, as a policy, in a policy level, how can we improve this awareness? Can you talk about that?
How can it reach out to more people?
When we are talking about the program policy implementation, a very important component is to ensure that it reaches to the intended beneficiary. Whenever a program policy is being designed, so it is very well kept in the mind that it should reach the intended beneficiary. The intended beneficiary should be knowing about those schemes and programs. When we talk about the rural areas, especially in the Gram Panchayats, in the village committees also, I think because I have seen around 13 years in the field only, I have seen that people get to know through their Gram Sachivs, people get to know even through their elected representatives, and people get to know through their officials who are there. And government is trying to have more and more awareness campaigns. Of course, now though those physical campaigns are not happening much, we are giving ads in the newspapers, we are giving messages in the All India Radio, in the Doordarshan, in all those television modes, of course, through social media. In social media also, you see so many, and so much information is available. So when we're talking about this awareness information, government is very much laying emphasis on this aspect. And I would also request the young people out here that as you are all updated because you follow people on Twitter, you follow government organizations on Twitter, you come across all those online news. So if you come across any such scheme and program and you feel that anybody in your family is deserving to be getting such benefit, so please try and contact the concerned officer, try and contact at the helpline number which is given. If the helpline is not working, drop an email, contact through email, or any platform which you feel is available.
Please reach out also. Yeah, don't keep quiet. So thank you so much for answering that. I can see Tanuj and Vivek, I mean, among many others raising hands. So who would like to come first? Maybe.
Jai Hind, ma'am.
Jai Hind, Tanuj. Yes.
My name is Narinder Siswa. Ma'am, I'm this year facing UPSC interview. So I have a question related to interview. Would you like to answer?
आप इंटरव्यू दे रहे हैं अभी?
जी मैम.
So when is it scheduled?
I have not received that date, ma'am, due to Corona.
Right.
So when date, I have question, ma'am. Is there question related to ARC reports in interview? Would you like to share your experience?
Not necessarily. Actually, it depends on the interview board which you will face. Generally, they will, for an interview, I would like to mention that generally they try to assess you as an individual. They try to assess that if you join the system, so whether you would be able to contribute effectively and what is the purpose of your appearing in the civil service examination, of what is your purpose of appearing for this interview also. So I think Narendra, as I remember your name, Narendra, you work on your CV, whatever are the details you have filled in the mains form, your educational qualifications, your background, your native place, agar aapne kahin kaam kiya hai, so where you have worked, you prepare all those aspects. एंड ऑफ कोर्स द जनरल स्टडीज, मतलब जो करंट अफेयर्स हैं उसमें से कुछ टॉपिक हैं वो भी पूछे जा सकते हैं. नाउ ऑफ कोर्स कोविड पैंडेमिक हैज बीन ऑल थ्रू आउट करंट टॉपिक, तो उसके बारे में पूछ सकते हैं. द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रिफॉर्म्स कमीशन के आई एम नॉट श्योर बिकॉज मैंने बहुत सालों पहले दिया था इंटरव्यू. सो दे में आस्क योर ओपिनियन कि उन्होंने जो ये रिकमेंडेशंस दी थी आपको क्या लगता है कि ये इम्प्लीमेंट होना चाहिए या इसको कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट करें, इस तरीके से आपसे पूछा जा सकता है. तो देयर इज नो हार्म इन गिविंग योर बैलेंस्ड ओपिनियन. मीन्स कि आप ऐसे इसको करना चाहिए या करा जा सकता है, बट डू नॉट एंटर इनटू अ टसल, डू नॉट एंटर इनटू एन आर्गुमेंट विद द बोर्ड. And if you are not confident, you should not even attempt at answering. Means do not trust in the interview board. It is very important because they are
that's a very valuable tip. I can see Sumedha and Anuj. I can take quick questions, please.
So I think it's already 6 o'clock.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so that of course is there, and we should, stick to our time also. What we can do always, Tanuj, all those people who are asking questions can always write in to us. We will take it to ma'am, and she can always give a written answer, and we can, in a way, adjust that also later.
Yeah, the last one, please. Yeah, please.
Who wants to come in? Tanuj or Sumedha?
Namaskar, ma'am.
Jaldi पूछिए जी.
Namaste, हाँ जी.
Ma'am, would you please tell one short key to be consistent in our daily goals? Ma'am, like if one have enough mental clarity about goals and have enough driving force, but in his mind, ma'am, so what to do to be disciplined in real life, ma'am? This is a major problem I'm facing nowadays as a student, ma'am.
Tanuj, for discipline, I think you have to have the commitment to your own self. So whenever I interact with the students, they ask me whether to have focus, whether to stay motivated, whether to concentrate, all those kind of things. So I think the first and foremost thing is that आप जो भी कर रहे हैं वो आप खुद के लिए कर रहे हैं, आपको करना है, आप उसके लिए कर रहे हैं. So my point is that what is the burning purpose, what is the motivation inside you which keeps you driving, that you should identify. और वो ही आपके माइंड में हमेशा रहना चाहिए. I'm not only talking about civil services, I'm talking about your daily routine also. For example, in your daily life, if you want to lose weight, for example, अगर आपको आपका टारगेट है कि मुझे 6 months में मुझे 8 to 10 kgs लूज करना है, तो आपका डेली फोकस रहेगा कि आपको कितना कैलोरीज, आई मीन यू विल बी मॉनिटरिंग दैट. सो योर एनी टास्क यू टेक, आपको कोई कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम की तैयारी करनी है, आपके पास 6 महीने का या 8 महीने का टाइम है, जैसे मैंने बीच में भी बोला, that you break the time available into your number of months, into your number of weeks, into days, and if possible into hours. I understand कि वो इतना easy नहीं होता है, but as I say, the key is commitment to your own self. कि मुझे ये करना है तो करना है, किसी और के लिए नहीं करना है, खुद के लिए करना है. This clarity should be there in your mind that you are doing it for your own life, for the life of people who will derive benefit.
As they say, Madam Goyal, that self-love, self-care is very important, which I see you practicing also, whatever I've observed. And I think the kind of motivation you've provided through this very engaging session.
Because it is important to understand that if you are happy, you will be able to perform. If you are happy, you will be able to help out each other. अगर आप खुद ही परेशान रहेंगे तो किसी की मदद
कैसे दूसरों को खुश रखेंगे. बहुत बहुत सुंदर आपने बात कही है अंत में, and it's been a very engaging session. I think there have been a lot of insights that you can always, it will be available on YouTube, can go on and take it as notes and take it home, study all these things that Madam Goyal has said right here, because each word that she has said is not only as an achiever, as somebody who as a woman has broken into this world with a lot of strength and current imagination, motivation, dedication, perseverance, and commitment. But she goes on in her daily routine and in work as well with a lot of power.
And of course, the last point is never forget your family. In whatever profession you take, try and balance out your professional and family obligations.
Thank you so very much for these very kind words. And I'm sure not only the students, but all those people and viewers and participants who have watched, I'm sure have benefited from this session today on Herbal India Talk Show series. Please continue to watch us. Every day we are coming to you now, mostly in the evenings, either 6 to 7, today 5 to 6. But thank you so much for always encouraging us. We are on all social media. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So do watch us, do give us your suggestions and feedback. We look forward to it. And Madam Goel, we can't thank you enough for sparing this time today with us on Herbal India. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure also.
Thank you.
And all the young people, stay happy, stay healthy. अगर एक ऑप्शन क्लिक नहीं करेगी दूसरा कुछ अच्छा जरूर होगा, ये माइंड में रखिए हमेशा.
थैंक यू सो मच. रास्ते खुले हुए हैं और रास्ते पे चलना जरूरी है, लेकिन कभी दरवाजे बंद मत कीजिए. So once again, thank you.